What's up, guys? My name is Jacob. I'm a third-year medical student at St. George's University, and I just started my clinical rotations here in Toledo, Ohio. In this video, I'm going to be going over what to expect in terms 3 and 4 at SGU. So congrats if you just finished your first year of medical school at SGU. You finished terms 1 and 2, and you are done with BPM 1 and BPM 2. So now you're heading into term 3, and if you're like me, you're kind of wondering what's this term about. It's a short term. So let me break that down for you a little bit. So term 3 and 4 are combined at St. George's. So term 3 is usually going to begin either at the end of June, or it will begin at the beginning of January and extend with term 4. Term 3 and 4 will extend into June, so it's a little bit of an extended term. But it's about, term 3 is a 6-week term, so you're going to have 3 weeks and a test, and then you're going to have 3 weeks and a test, and you're going to be going over just kind of a hodgepodge of information. You're going to be talking about immunology, public health, epidemiology, microbiology. So to be honest, it can get a little bit dry, but it sets a really important foundation before you go into term 4. And so my best advice for term 3 would just be to take the test really seriously. The way that it works in term 3 is because it's so short, your tests are worth a lot of points. So if you have a bad test, there's only 2 tests, so your term grade can really be affected by one mediocre or bad test. And so just really try to stay on top of the test. Basically, the way that it works is you're going to have the 2 tests. You're going to have just a few professionalism points and a few IMCQ points, and that's going to be it. It goes by really quick. And the way that it worked for my term, which again, just a disclaimer, term 3 was my last term that was online, and then for term 4 I moved to in-person on the island. But I think the way that it usually works is there's like 5 days or so, like a Friday to a Wednesday break in between the last test of term 3 and then the beginning of term 4. So it's not too long. They just give you a few days off, and it's real quick. As far as term 4 goes, this is where you really start to get into like the bread and butter of medicine, I feel like. In term 3, it's BPM 3, so it's going to be Basic Principles of Medicine 3. So you're still kind of like looking at some of those basic principles, and you're not really getting into like treating conditions and really diagnosing diseases and that type of thing. But once you hit term 4, you switch over into Principles of Clinical Medicine 1, and you really start to get into like heavy cores of treating patients and diagnosing what they're dealing with, across all different specialties. And so it's kind of like, they call it your second spiral of information that you've already done. So the first module in term 4 is going to be FTCM, which is Foundations to Clinical Medicine. Just like in term 1, you have Foundations to Medicine. In term 4, you come back and hit it, and it's Foundations to Clinical Medicine. So again, you're looking at a lot of like pathology. You're looking at microbiology, like histology, but instead of just like looking at the histology and just like knowing what it is, in term 4, FTCM, the first module, you're really looking at the histology and how it relates to like the different types of necrosis. So you're going to like look at the histology for coagulative necrosis versus the histology for liquefactive necrosis, and you'll have to be able to distinguish those. But it's really cool because, like I said, it relates into the diseases. And so for me, term 4 was a lot more enjoyable. And then after FTCM, you'll go into CRS. And basically CRS is similar to what you had in term 1 as well. It's going to be cardiovascular and renal systems. So, self-explanatory. You'll go into treating different cardiovascular and renal pathologies, And I think if I remember right, there's also CRS is very heavy on drugs as well. So you'll have a lot of pharm on that test. So that can be kind of challenging. You'll go through all of the muscarinic and cholinergic drugs. And then you'll move into respiratory and hematopoietic, which is RHS, which you'll be looking at obviously the respiratory pathologies, and then you'll be looking at all of the leukemias and different types of blood cancers. That can be another challenging thing to try to distinguish all of the different types of leukemia. So my advice with that is to just sit down and like write them all out. There's a lot of buzzwords that you can take from the leukemias. For example, you can look at like smudge cells, and anytime you see smudge cells, you know that that's probably going to be CLL. Or when you see like the Philadelphia chromosome, which is a translocation between chromosome 9 or 22, you know that that's going to be CML, chronic myeloid leukemia. So there's certain buzzwords, there's quite a few of them. I would say each leukemia, each like myelodysplastic syndrome, like all those, they all have like one or two buzzwords, and I would definitely know all those because they start to blend together, especially when you're like looking at a vignette. They start to blend together for sure. And then after that, you're kind of gonna get into the home stretch, which is DERS, which is digestive, endocrine, reproductive system. And to be honest, it's a tough module. It's not only tough because of the content, it is, you know, tough content, but also just feel like mentally, the whole module, the DERS module is 6 weeks long, and you know, you have term 3 that goes right into term 4, and you're right at the end there. So it's like finishing up a marathon in terms of like, you just got to keep your stamina up. You got to keep, keep in all your hours, do all your flashcards, do all your questions. And it can get hard just to grind at the end because you start in June, and you know, that last module is going into the middle of December. So you're doing school pretty much straight from June to December. And that can get pretty tough. But in terms of DERS, you're kind of hitting, you know, the GI, the endocrine, the reproductive. So there is quite a bit of new content when you look at it compared with the endocrine module in term 2 and the GI module in term 2. So just make sure you know the different reproductive pathologies for male and female repro, and just all the different congenital adrenal hyperplasias and endocrine. And then there'll be some more histology that kind of comes in with the digestive system. But overall, I enjoyed DERS. That was a good exam for me. So like I said, just keep grinding it out there at the end. So overall in term 4, there are a lot more points when you compare it to term 3. So that's nice to be able to have a little bit of a buffer if you have a bad test or something like that. But there's 4 exams. You're gonna have an IMCQ grade. You're gonna have 2 SOAP assessments, which are basically just gonna be, you write a history and a physical exam and a plan, an assessment and a plan, SOAP, for patients. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, usually do like 2 patients for each SOAP note. And those aren't worth a whole bunch, so I wouldn't stress over them. You know, they depending on which facilitator you get, which standardized patient you get, the grades can fluctuate a little bit. So my advice for the SOAP notes is just to kind of take them with a grain of salt. Obviously, I'd do your best on them, but you're never going to be able to get that perfect score. And it can be frustrating at times, but like I said, they're not worth that many points. Another thing that's added in there is the physical exam assessment. And I think for my class, this was actually like a group activity. It was like the first one, and it was kind of a group thing. And so it was only worth like 7 or 8 points. So again, I wouldn't stress about that too much. And then you also have your OSCE, which is at the very end of the semester, and that is worth the most points, probably like 30-ish points. And your OSCE is basically you're going to do 2 full encounters with standardized patients, and you're graded on your SOAP note, you're graded on making sure you do the right exam and getting the right diagnosis. So that's kind of like the full grading scale for term 4. Okay, so wrapping it up, just general advice for term 4. I think a lot of my study habits probably stayed the same. I continued to use Anki, continued to use Boards and Beyond. For term 4, I did add Pathoma. I thought that was a really nice resource. My favorite videos of his for like SGU for term 4 would be the different renal pathologies, like the nephritis videos, because he breaks it down really well so you can understand the differences between all the different syndromes, between like PSGS, minimal change disease. Like, he breaks it down really well and shows you the actual histology and electron microscopy for those. So I would definitely recommend Pathoma. He has videos, and then I think it comes with a textbook as well. And on a lot of things, I ended up actually preferring Pathoma over Boards and Beyond, but both great resources. Again, I would do all of the questions that SGU provides, probably multiple times. And then another, I would call it like a goldmine resource, is the Utah Med Path questions. I went and did those probably 2 times through. Each, I would say, section has like 50 questions or so, and those are just like so good. They are very challenging, and there's maybe a couple questions on each section that SGU doesn't cover, but it's so worth it, and I would definitely look at that. That's Utah Med Pathology questions. And so, for example, if you can break it down by like body system or by discipline. So, for example, in FTCM, I definitely want to break it down by like histology and the types of necrosis, and do those questions. Whereas when you get into like cardiology and renal, you can go and do the cards questions, do the renal questions, and those are really good. But besides that, just stay up on Anki, because that can, if you do Anki, there can be a lot of cards there. But I just use the regular deck, like off of Anki, and then you can get the SGU tags for term 4. I'm not very sophisticated with the Anki. I just usually grab the tags for whatever term I'm in and do those. You can always like hide cards or suspend cards or whatever. But besides that, I would say just enjoy it, because you're getting close to the end of basic sciences, which is really exciting. Just a side note on studying for STEP. A lot of people ask, when I get to term 4, should I start studying for STEP? And my answer would be no. SGU gives you so many resources, and in term 5, you're basically studying for STEP the whole semester. So, and also step 1 is pass-fail as of this year. So for those reasons, I would just focus on doing very well in term 4, because if you do well in term 4, you're going to be studying for STEP anyway. So I wouldn't recommend doing any STEP prep. You'll get all of that in term 5, and besides that, I would say good luck. I hope this video is helpful. I plan to do more videos in the future about term 5, and then about STEP, studying for STEP, and starting clinical rotations. If you have any questions, or if you have any video suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comment below. We would love if you would like and subscribe to our channel here, and God bless.